It's probably one of the most crowded marketplaces that has probably existed for many, many moons.
We believe and still think there's that shift coming, which is, this concept of AI being a tool will really transition to AI being a teammate.
Now everyone has equal access to build tools and distribute tools, and so it seems as though the market in general around AI has been absolutely crazy.
When you hire AI, I think for the first time now, you are hiring them to deliver pipeline. You are not hiring them to get dials, get more activities. You're going to hire these cloud employees via a salary.
I like the novel approach. I like the kind of the metaphor you're using with staff. I can see it's easier for people to get their head around, especially if it's priced sensibly.
Let's not talk about tools. Tools are gone. SaaS is dead.
Just a quick one before we get into the podcast. I need to tell you about this white paper that we've just done with Decagon. You've probably come across Decagon. It's recently raised its Series D, $250 million at a $4.5 billion valuation. It was also recently featured in OpenAI's Frontier Builders segment, the only CX company to be featured. OpenAI has identified Decagon as one to watch at the bleeding edge of what's possible when it comes to CX automation using AI. This white paper is specifically for businesses that need to handle sudden or planned surges in demand. If you think about retailers around Black Friday, insurance companies around renewal periods, travel companies around the school holidays, even when something happens that's unpredictable, like there's an airline strike and the airline receives a sudden spike in demand. This white paper highlights how you can leverage AI to cope with those sudden surges in demand. There's 8 use cases there, 8 ways that AI can help. There's 2 case studies from Decagon clients who have been doing this exact thing, using AI to manage surge, spikes in demand and scale. And you can find out exactly how you can do it for your business if you just go to vux.la/scale. vux.la/scale. SCALE. And you can download that white paper right now. The following is a conversation with Gabe Larsen. Gabe is the Chief Revenue Officer at Signals, which is an AI organization that provides AI employees. Now, the interesting part about this conversation is the way in which Signals present themselves. There's lots of companies that provide AI capabilities. There's lots of companies that position themselves as AI agentic platforms, etc. But Signals seem to me at least to have pushed it to the very edge of the whole notion of digital employee. They actually call their agents by the role that they perform, and they sell them to businesses based on the business hiring an actual employee. They basically have like an employment contract, and if they don't do the job and you don't like them, just like you would do with an employee, you can just sack them. And so this is a really interesting conversation about the future of work, the future of AI agents, and how, if you think about AI agents as performing job functions and recruiting them as a replacement, but as a substitute for hiring a person, then it leads you into an interesting mental model, and it gives you a little bit of a glimpse perhaps of what the agentic organization looks like. This is a very interesting conversation for those of you that are interested. This is Gabe Larsen on VUX World. Gabe Larsen, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Welcome indeed. I'm excited to be here.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. We were saying there the year's been getting off to a flying start. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you spending some time.
Yeah. Look, it has been a busy start, but I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways, so I can't complain.
Definitely. Nice one. So, we chatted before Christmas, and I was interested, in your and Signals approach and the way that you kind of present yourselves, the way you talk about AI and AI agents and stuff like that. And I thought it was quite a yeah, a kind of a novel approach, really, in terms of the way you label them based on the role type that they have, and you really talk
Sure.
about them like digital workers and stuff like that. So it was an interesting perspective. So I thought it would be nice to hear a little bit more, basically, hear from you, hear about the company, your approach, and what you're seeing in the market, basically, you know?
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, yeah, you want me to start high level or you want me to dive into the specifics?
Well,
Which
let's
you
start
prefer?
with, maybe it'd be good to for people to hear about you. I know you got a lot of experience and all that kind of stuff. You know, a customer and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it's a
Yeah,
little bit about you and why you decided to join Signals, and then we can get into the whole Signals thing.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I was born 9 pounds, 8 ounces, starting at the beginning. Maybe that's too, maybe that's too early. No, I'm a consultant by trade. So I did some stuff in banking and consulting, and then I slipped into kind of SaaS and technology maybe 20 years ago. I had a really cool run with a company called Inside Sales. We were trying to kind of disrupt the field sales model. This is early 2000, and more of a data-driven, high-velocity inbound sales kind of program. So we had a fun run there. I joined, maybe 100 employees. We grew it to about 1,400 employees, and felt that excitement of SaaS and the growth you can have in that world. Wanted to stick in it, so I moved out to New York, joined a small customer service technology company, a little like a Zendesk, and we had an awesome run there. About 2 years in, we got bought by Meta. It was Meta's fourth largest transaction at the time. They just purchased Manus, so I think we're now the fifth largest transaction. Anyways, I spent 2 years at Meta doing who the heck knows what, a little bit of stuff in France and Brazil, working with WhatsApp. But it was a great experience. Unfortunately, after 2 years, they had kind of what Mark Zuckerberg called the year of efficiency. And so if you didn't have ads, AI, or VR in your title, I think you were on the chopping block. So they divested us, kicked us out. And AI was just starting to get interesting. And I helped transition out of Meta. And then I said, I got to get with the AI stuff. And so I met up with a good friend of mine named Dave Elkington, and he was starting to play around with these transformer models. And I think, as everybody knows, there was some cool stuff going on. And so next thing I know, I'm with Signals, and we had a banner year, grew 400% last year. And I think there's so much exciting stuff, and I think we'll get into that today. So that's a little bit about me and brings us to current day.
Nice one, nice, yeah. That's cool. So what was it about Signals then that in particular, because there's a lot of startups in this space now. It's probably one of the most crowded marketplaces that has probably existed for many, many moons. And I think like what the internet did when, in terms of like giving everyone equal access
Oh
to
my goodness, yeah.
distribution, it's kind of like now you put AI tools on top of that. Now everyone has equal access to build tools and distribute tools. And so it seems as though just the market in general around AI has been absolutely crazy. So what was it in particular about Signals that caught your attention?
Well, I think that it's kind of as we were kicking off the show here, the conversation with Dave and I, and that he was open to some of these concepts that I think the world was changing, and we maybe AI is here, but how is it going to be adopted and used? And we debated a lot about how we should position or how AI will be positioned. And one of the things we debated was just SaaS in general, and we were kind of frustratingly debating this idea that SaaS had never really lived up to its promise, and that promise was software as a service. We'd always kind of looked at these tools like Outreach and said, we never bought Outreach for a dialing tool. We bought it for pipeline. We never bought Marketo for an email tool. We bought it because we wanted to actually be able to nurture and have customers, transform the way that they worked with us, or whatever it was. We bought Gong not for conversations. We bought it for more sales. And it just felt like they were always tools. Um, and we kind of had that aha moment where, we believe and still think there's that shift coming, which is, yeah, this concept of AI being a tool will really transition to AI being a teammate. And with that shift comes a whole set of new paradigms, but certainly one of them is much closer to the delivered promise of outcomes. Again, when you hire AI, I think for the first time now, You are hiring them to deliver pipeline. You are not hiring them to get dials, get more activities, listen to conversations, all the stuff that tools kind of did in the past. And so that was one of the biggest, I think, ahas that Dave and I had when we first kicked this off was let's reposition the market. Let's not talk about tools. Tools are gone. SaaS is dead. Let's move to AI and let's move to teammates. And so I think that was probably, and with that idea, rather than copy the market and say we're going with an AI agent, that's kind of the sea of sameness term you're hearing. We kind of came up with our own vernacular. We call them cloud employees. And they are, and again, playing with the idea that you hire them, you onboard them, you coach them. A cloud employee is an advanced AI agent. And that was kind of the kernel, those kernels of truth, I think, said, you know what, with that, let's go to market. And I think it'll be pretty freaking exciting. So that was the reason to jump in with Signals.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting, like you're coming at it from the perspective of like, SaaS and the systems that are sitting behind it. Whereas when I first got interested in AI, I was coming at it from the user experience side. And I think those two things have basically converged, which is that what you're explaining from the SaaS point of view was, you didn't want the tool, you wanted the outcome. And it's the same thing from the user experience side of things, is you don't want the interaction, you want the outcome. And conversational interfaces have proven good at collapsing all of the messiness of a UI and boiling it down to it's what I would kind of class as almost like the purest form of communication, which is language. And so it seems as though like your perspective is you've come at it from the back end. When I first got interested, I was coming at it from the front end. But both perspectives are entirely valid, which is
interesting. Yeah, that's right. The user interface and the communication aspect. I mean, I remember when ChatGPT came out, and I remember saying, like, this is the first time that, a human could clearly communicate with technology, like have a conversation that was obviously as clear as, talking to another human. It felt so human-like, right? I mean, so I get that. That's interesting. Yeah, we both kind of came at it the same way, but seems like we've ended here.
Yeah. Very good. So how is it then that your customers receive and perceive your concept of, cloud workers? Because we've used the term ourselves often enough in terms of like digital employees and stuff like that, but more from the point of view of like, there is the digital employee, and that digital employee does all of your stuff. Like Erica is Bank of America's version, but Erica does everything: transfers, savings, everything. Whereas you kind of very much kind of delineated, I suppose, the role types. And so you have like an SDR, you've got a HR person, you've got such and such. So like, tell me a little bit about how that is being received and perceived in the market.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges in the market was, as we've gone to, as AI's come out, is certainly the pricing aspect, and that, how do you buy, or how do you interact with AI? And I came from a world where we were charging cost per conversation, cost per interaction. And that I feel like was a huge challenge with AI and continues to be. How do you kind of manage around that? So that's one thing we wanted to tackle. And so we've kind of come to market and said, rather than cost per interaction, you're going to hire these cloud employees via a salary. And that right there, Kane, it just makes so much more. I mean, they hire employees, now they hire cloud employees. So I feel like that alone, people have been like, oh my goodness, that's so much easier to grasp than the idea of cost per, I don't know, how many conversations was I going to have this month? What is your definition of a conversation? How can I plan on that? Could you charge me 100,000 extra this month? Yeah, that stuff was really confusing. So I think the salary-based concept has been landing very well in the way that we do that. So that's one. The second, though, is, a lot of companies, you mentioned kind of the Bank of America, there's other companies out there who kind of, it's their one-stop shop. Their agent does everything. And we felt like, when we went to market, it was a little hard to do that, meaning to have one agent truly be like the end-all, be-all. The word hallucination, like, can you really have an agent be your customer service rep, your sales rep, your HR rep? We just found when we started to plug that information in, it was better to kind of break it down into more bite-sized chunks, such as a specific role. So we quickly found, hey, the more we can make this human, you hire them on a salary. You wouldn't hire an SDR to also run sales or also run customer service or all. So why don't you just hire one cloud employee per function, which that's also been kind of a different concept. Is you wouldn't hire, if we have an AI SDR you can hire, you wouldn't hire 3 of those. You hire one AI SDR, and then we work with you to either ratchet it up or ratchet it down, meaning you can basically have a junior AI SDR, a senior AI SDR, a manager level AI SDR, and each of those come with different characteristics or capabilities, as you would in the regular world. And so, short answer, Kane, is I feel like I don't think we've cracked the code by any means, but from my previous experience, I think it's a world of difference. People are like, I know how to hire humans. I know how to onboard them. I know how to coach them. I know what a salary means. And we've basically taken that exact concept. You hire a cloud employee, you onboard them, you coach them, you give them a salary. People are like, yeah, I get it. That's what I do all the time. So now there's obviously nuances and there's challenges, but because it's so similar to hiring a regular employee, I feel like the learning curve for people has been much quicker.
Yeah, that's interesting. How then, because that could potentially cause some problems for you, I imagine. Because imagine that, let's say that you're a bank and you hire one collections agent that helps you recover debt or whatever, and you charge a salary, whatever the salary is, but this thing ends up working 24 hours a day. It ends up recuperating, let's call it millions of pounds, dollars, whatever. How do you go about pricing something like that? Because you might be at risk, would you not be, of undercharging?
Yeah, you 100%. So normally what happens, again, like a human, that's usually where we try to start. How much can your regular teller do per day? Or a regular teller can handle 50 conversations a day or something. Cool. So what we try to do is we try to match the regular teller, and we'd call that a junior level person. And usually they know what their output is. Very, very few times have I talked to an organization where they say, it'd be a surprise to have, again, there's always spikes. Black Friday, we've got clients who do different things, but for the most part, people know the job they're hiring for. So what we've come in and said, let's match your current frame. So if your current teller does 30 transactions a day, we're going to match that with our junior cloud employee, and we'll start there. The key is, though, we're going to try to match the output at 1/5 the cost. Right. Or 1/10 the cost. Okay. So that's where you usually get somebody. So I'm going to match the teller, same output, 1/5 the cost. That's a pretty hard for someone to be like, no. They're usually going to be like, yes. So we start there. Now, what we do is we have built into our systems those kind of limits and capabilities. So if you go to 35 transactions, we all just get notified and say, hey, this person is now producing more. Would you like to upgrade from a junior level cloud employee to a senior level cloud employee? That gives you the following characteristics all upgraded. So at the moment, we do not charge overages, but we do flag when you basically move past 20% of the agreed upon capacity, so that we can have a conversation about moving from a junior to senior to manager to VP level in those kind of cloud employee capabilities. So that's how we handle it right now. And yes, we definitely, once people are at that 10 or 15% overage and we're not charging them anything, and we just sit down and have a conversation and see if they want to basically promote their cloud employee. Again, I'm using very specific human language here, but promote their cloud employee, then we will do that. A lot of times people say, you know what, that was a fluke, or we just got a spike because of this. Let's stay at the junior level. But we can also talk about that promotion path up to manager.
Interesting. It's a really good metaphor. Like it really is something I think that people can understand. And in a world where the technology is moving fast and people feel like they're being left behind and stuff like that, I think packaging it like that is genius. Talk to us a bit then about how these things, like what do they do, for example, like a junior versus a mid versus a senior. presumably it's not just that they'll take on more volume. Is that when you would
Yeah.
get more into, okay, maybe a junior answers questions, uses retrieval augmented generation. Maybe a mid-level retrieves data from one of your business systems. Maybe a senior writes
That's
data
right.
into
There
your
you go.
systems,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. So the way we broke it down as we built these more complex AI agents, we found that cloud employees have four core characteristics. Again, not features, but characteristics, like their DNA, if you will. And those four are communication. How do they communicate? Next is their knowledge. Next is their tools. And next is their intelligence. And so each level across that spectrum, junior, senior, manager, you basically rise in each of those core capabilities. So let's say, for an example, on the junior level, let's just go through each of them. Communications. We typically say you start with 2 communications. That is a big differentiation for us right now is every cloud employee, just like a human, can do chat, email, phone, SMS, LinkedIn. Like we're not a single channel because a human's not a single channel. We do then typically start and say with that junior level, pick 2 communication channels, chat and email and phone. And then we give you a certain capacity there, maybe a couple hours of talk time a day, for example, right? Cool. Then over on knowledge, we say you got to train them. You got to load up your website, some PDFs, some phone calls. We have a full proprietary long-term, short-term, and real-time memory system we're trying to get patented. But that core concept is they need to have information to learn about the job they're basically going to perform. That basically is like storage. How much are you going to store into their memory? Okay. So at the junior level, let's say it's a handful of gigabytes or something like that. Cool. On the tools front, it's what do they need access to perform their job? You do this with any regular BDR, any regular person. They need access to Salesforce. They need access to a calendar. They need access to HubSpot, Zoom Info, whatever it might be. And so in that junior level, you're going to get 1 to 2 tools that they have access to, right? And then last but not least is the intelligence. And these are the specific actions they take to do their job. So think if I'm an SDR, one of the actions I may take is I might go into CRM to check to see if it's a customer. I might go into Zoom Info to see if I could append some information. I might run routing rules in the background to see, based on territory, which sales rep I should send this to. Those are intelligent actions that person, this cloud employee, needs to take. And we give you basically allotment of, we call them tokens, that basically allow you to run these intelligent shapes. So again, the junior level cloud employee, communication, knowledge, tools, and intelligence, and you get kind of just like you would with the human. Like when you hire a kid out of college, no offense, but they typically have a certain capacity that they can do. And so you kind of get the same concept, but we can. I mean, man, I've got examples. I've got one cloud employee now handling 11,000 inbound leads a month. We would call that broke our manager, senior manager. That's like beyond VP level. But boy, it's crazy. And that's so fascinating. Again, you don't need to hire more. We just ratchet up that kind of those 4 core characteristics higher and higher, and you still just have Clara now handling 11,000 inbound leads. So that's kind of the 4 characteristics, Kane, or how we kind of break that down.
That's good. That's good. And how do you then go about the implementation side of this? Because, like, I could imagine that you've probably got some degree of scalability if you focus on very specific job types. So your BDR has certain capabilities, and your qualifier has certain capabilities, and your customer support has certain capabilities. But every company is different, and everyone wants their own flavor of something, and it shouldn't sound like this, it should sound like that, and our knowledge base is in Zendesk, whereas mine's in such and such.
That's right.
How do you go about doing that then? Because I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that you want this to be as repeatable as it can be, but customers are not necessarily a cookie cutter type of thing. So how do you approach going from I'm interested to let's build you your AI agent or whatever you call
That's
it?
correct. Yeah. So at the moment, we have about 25 templates, agentic personas that you can hire from us. And those range from a sales engineer to an AI SDR to a recruiter to an internal support to a product marketer to project manager. Again, we've got kind of a variety of templates. And ideally, you would hire one of those templates from us. And then you go to like the 80-20 rule, where we take one of these templates. Let's say it's the sales engineer, and we start with what we have and what we've learned now implementing this 1 to 10 to 15 times or whatever it might be. And then the 20% is, yeah, that little bit of like, hey, your prompt's going to be different. Obviously, your knowledge base is going to be a little bit different. Maybe you want it to do something slightly different, but typically we're trying to push people to that 80%. We have the template, 20% customization. And that's where we hope to continue to differentiate. Like, man, everybody's building agents like crazy, right? I mean, I think the world's going to be full of builders, and they're going to get better and better. But I have to believe, I've seen it in so many aspects of my life, there's always room for fine paintings, if you will, really expert things where it's like people have honed and optimized and they've gotten something so good that people are willing to pay more for a fine painting as they are some kind of watercolor. So we want to be the fine painters. We've templatized the SDR role. We're finding right now, just to give an example, when you hire an SDR from us, there's about 62 tasks right now built into our template to run the full SDR role. When you see that in a visual, again, we have kind of a multi-agent environment. So you hire kind of this cloud employee, but underneath the cloud employee, they have a bunch of different agents running different tasks. My point being 62, that's not something that some kid off the street's going to go build in N8N or make. It's fairly complex, Kane. And to do that, again, build all you want, but if you really are building a full SDR, and I'm talking the gauntlet, new lead comes in, checking the research, appending, checking CRM, building a cadence, running a cadence, routing, scheduling the meeting, writing it back to CRM, sending this, like that type of stuff, that's not a ChatGPT agent. That is not, that's just more complex. So anyways, that's kind of the gauntlet that we've run.
And how do you compare then to other type solutions? Because I wouldn't call this anything comparable to ChatGPT. I wouldn't compare it anything comparable to Make and N8N. I know that some people, I suppose, are using them platforms for this type of stuff, but
sure.
For me, it's more similar to, the decagons and the cognigies and the boosts and the one reaches and that side of things that it seems that you're trying to do, because you're trying to ultimately, you're doing work, but you're having conversations with customers, and therefore it feels a bit more like that compared to the other. So how do you think that you compare to the rest of the market in that respect?
Yeah, I believe the world that they're all going to converge where we are right now. You got to be boastful, I guess, or proud, but I do think we're a little ahead in our positioning, meaning we are a complex, autonomous, multi-channel cloud employee. Okay, that's a little different than some of the others, but they're all coming that way. So you name a company, maybe let's use a company like Qualified, for example. That's a AI SDR company that does, or let's use Decagon as an example. I know Decagon well. I think that's one you mentioned. Let's start there. Decagon started as a custom solution chatbot. Okay. Now, again, it's still an AI agent. It still has the knowledge and intelligence. Recently, they've added phone. And so do they have SMS? Do they have LinkedIn? Do they have, some of these other channels? Email? No, but they'll get there. They'll get there. So oftentimes you're going to see the single channel. I was going to go to Qualified or Intercom. Like Intercom, Finn's been a chatbot forever. They're trying to get voice. It's been tough. I know they're working on, it's going to get better, but they've been a single channel agent. So Kane, that would probably be one of the biggest differences. We're operating on about 5 to 7 channels. SMS, again, is a big one for us in different markets. None of those guys are doing SMS, but we think if you're hiring an employee, certainly an SDR could do chat, SMS, LinkedIn, phone. You choose what they do. So the multi-channel is one that I think is different, but I think everybody's coming that way. Some of them, I think, started in more of a deterministic nature, meaning they built more flow bots than they did like multi-agent environments. So I think that's a differentiator on some. meaning if you see the way our back end product is, you're going to see again a supervisor agent with 5 to maybe 250 agents underneath it running different programs. In some of these platforms, you're going to see a flow. Think almost N8 Enter Make, but that would be some of the core differentiators. And then just the complexity of the task, right? Some of these agents were designed to literally do a phone call, schedule a meeting, and ours are meant to tackle jobs. Think 50 to 60 tasks rolled up. So I'd say the 3 core differentiators right now is multi-channel, task first jobs, autonomous versus deterministic.
Interesting. There was an interesting thing from McKinsey last year or the year before. I think it was the year before last, actually, and it was looking at where does generative AI have the potential to automate functions?
Yeah.
And then what jobs and what tasks can it automate? And it kind of, I can't remember the exact roles and stuff like that. Obviously, like customer support was one big one,
right?
And, this, that, and the other. But what it found is that at least 2 years ago, McKinsey found that not all tasks were automatable, so to speak. In some roles, it was maybe 70% of your scope of role is probably open to automation. Others was a lot lower. So what I'm getting at there is that, the automating an entire job role is quite a challenge because job roles are quite vast. So I wonder whether and how you're approaching the idea of like either human in the loop, if you want to call it that, or working alongside people.
Yes, yeah.
Because presumably there's certain things that you can't do or the company doesn't want you to do.
Yeah.
And that's still where the people are. So how do you work alongside the people aspect?
Yeah, so we've found that there's 4 places where I think organizations are tackling AI first and getting the biggest bang for their buck. And I think those roles are where they're taking more of the job. After those 4, you then move into where they're taking less of the role and you're seeing more human in the loop, partnership, etc. So we've actually tried to tackle that layer as strong as we can. So those 4 basic roles where most organizations we see are starting and seeing major impact are computer programming. Think the cursors of the world, right? We have not gone there. We do not have a cloud employee. That's too competitive. We've not gone that place. We've gone to the next 3, though. The next one is customer service. You mentioned it. Sam Altman had a speech. He said customer service is one of the biggest places, ripe for a change when it comes to AI. So we do a lot in customer service. We have our core customer service cloud employee, but we have branched off. We've got about 10 others, a returns and merchandise authorization cloud employee, a co-pilot type cloud employee. So, but we try to get in initially with that chat, email, phone, tier 1 type replacement or augmentation. So that's number 2. Number 3 is something in sales. Typically, it's the SDR. It's a high volume. You're going to see the same concept, high volume, same task. So that's another one. And then the 4th is, interestingly, recruiting. A lot of organizations having challenges with high volume of resumes coming in. They can't filter like they used to. The keyword. That's a whole conversation I could go into, but that's so disrupted right now that if you don't fight AI with AI, you're basically toast. So we offer those 3 entry points into an organization: customer service, SDR, and recruiting. And those truthfully can take a large part of that role. Like we have a full screener. It grabs a resume off Indeed. It does the full interview. It understands if it should be qualified or not. And then it schedules only qualified candidates for a senior recruiter. That's a big portion of a screener's role. From there, though, then we move into that next layer, and that next layer moves more into like co-pilot or support. So on the SDR front, we have something called a sales engineer that's in the sales realm. What it does right now is it can do a demo of your product via voice technology, and it moves around a screen. And so that's something, it doesn't replace a sales rep. It just augments part of your process. We see sales reps sending this, hey, if you wanted to kind of see a full demonstration of our product, we've got this sales engineer. He can walk you through it. You can pass that around your organization. That's much more what you were saying, an augmentation than it is kind of a replacement. So we've looked at it, those core groupings, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's immediate wins for organizations. You see huge impact. After that, we start to branch into, we've got a win-loss cloud employee, a sales engineer, project management, internal support, role play, et cetera, et cetera. And those are all supporting, augmenting human in the loop type cloud employees.
Nice. And who is the kind of like, who's your typical customer? I'm assuming that this is kind of like, if they're hiring an employee and you're providing the employee, I suppose you're almost a little bit akin to kind of like a more 21st century AI BPO type
Oh, it totally
thing.
is. Totally is. Yeah, yeah. Some people have said, "Hey, this sounds like Upwork for agentic personas." Yeah, that's actually a great way to do it. Right now, we have 25 agentic templates. I think by the end of this year, we'll probably be closer to 100.
Yeah.
So yeah, go on Upwork and search a role. And to your point, some roles, you'll see are more on Upwork and assistant. Some are just like you'd see an SDR. Back to your comment of some are replacement, some are kind of like helping me. But definitely, I think that will be and therefore we don't sell as much into operations as we do to the product. The business leader. The business leader says, "I need to hire an SDR. I was looking for it, and I saw that I could get a BPO. I saw that I could hire a person, or you guys came up as a third option. I could hire an agentic persona." Yeah, cool.
That might not be a bad go-to-market. That you just go and apply for jobs.
Well, it's funny, man, you'll love this, Kane. We actually, as one of our marketing campaigns, we have, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but we've created LinkedIn profiles for a lot of our cloud employees, and we just go have them apply for SDR roles for.
That is a good idea, though, I suppose.
We have them go do it, and we've got some hilarious responses. Some people not that hilarious, but that will be, and that makes the difference so much interesting. I mean, as you would know, in an organization, the labor budget versus the tools budget is very, very different. And we would prefer to attack the labor budget, as that's such a bigger budget than the tools that are constantly being squeezed out of the organization.
Yeah. So most of the cost is, isn't it, for most businesses?
Oh, of course, 100%.
Yeah. So who's your kind of like target company then? Who is an ideal fit for Signals?
Yeah, look, this is a little harder if you're going to be kind of an outsourced, to your point, BPO for hiring agentic personas across the organization. Right now, we're really trying to attack 3 different markets. I had a few VCs tell me I'm stupid to go so broad here, but again, this would be a core differentiator for us versus a Decagon. Decagon's all customer service. We sell across the organization. So customer service is our primary. Think e-commerce retail. If you've outsourced, you've got a big call center, health, dental. That's kind of a big space we're playing in the customer service realm. For the AI SDR, it's mainly been tech companies. People who maybe have high volume inbound leads. They have a bunch of SDR, inbound response. So that's kind of been market number 2. And then market number 3 is that recruiter. And that's mostly been some partnerships or third-party firms that are doing a lot of hiring. But we've got a handful of companies who are hiring hundreds of automotive technicians, hiring more blue-collar workers. Again, when there's high volume, that's kind of a place for us in the hiring space. So at the moment, we've got the 3, the HR realm with recruiting and hiring. We've got the tech and AI SDRs, and then we've got kind of customer service. Think like retail, e-commerce, or high volume customer service transactions.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds, as I said, it's really good. I mean, I like the novel approach. I like the kind of the metaphor you're using with staff. I can see it's easier for people to get their head around, especially if it's priced sensibly. Obviously, it needs to be able to do the thing, has to be able to do what it says on the tin, and it needs to be designed well and stuff like that.
Well, and we don't, back to the old SaaS thing, like you can fire a cloud employee, you just need a couple week notice, right? So same thing with we don't lock you into a 5-year contract, or I can't you obviously would go month to month with an employee. You go month to month with the cloud employee. And if you like what they're doing, great. If not, give us a few weeks notice, and we'll unplug them and you go find another employee. So it's got to be, I'm always amazed at some of these AI companies. $100,000. I came across $100,000 AI SDR the other day. I'm thinking, what? I mean, an SDR fully loaded in the US right now in most places is close to 100,000. So I don't get any cost savings on that front. And I'm locked in for 12 months. Like, are you kidding me? Like, the whole point of AI is I wanted to do the same thing cheaper. I want to pay 1/10 to 1/5 the cost of a fully burdened SDR, and I want the same output.
Yeah.
And I want to pay month to month because if they didn't do the job just like a rail employee, I'm going to fire them. Of course you are. Of course you are. Ah, man, I'm amazed to see some people locked into those 12-month, $100,000 AI SDR. I think that's crazy, but
That is,
so it's
yeah.
got to be easy. It's got to be easy.
I suppose. I mean, for some companies, big companies, some things make sense in terms of like, you know, you were talking earlier about paying per minute or paying per interaction or paying per outcome and stuff like that. I can kind of get that. Also, you know, if you want to build your own team and your own capabilities and have an AI team that builds your own use cases, and so you need a platform that you can build in yourself, I can understand how those costs end up getting to that level and beyond. But you're right, if you are purely just thinking about this from a point of view of, I've got a job to do, I want to hire someone to do it, I've got a salary for that person, I can make a choice. Do I hire an actual person or do I hire an AI agent or a series of AI agents? I think you're right. It's got to be cheaper. It's got to be faster. And ideally, if you can get better performance as well, then you're laughing, aren't you?
Well, and we'll see. Like I said, I mean the way that you price and hire AI, I don't know if we have, again, all the answers. We wanted to try something different. I think so far it's been received better than what I did before, but a lot of people are talking about outcome-based pricing. And as I said, I did that. And I don't know, the idea that a conversation is an outcome or a resolved ticket is an outcome, it is, but what is your definition of a resolved ticket? Are they really happy or is it your definition of a resolved? Man, we just got into that with so many people. You take a step back. That's why I love humans. It's like I hire an SDR to hit pipeline. If they don't, I fire them. I like that definition of outcome-based pricing. I like it. So guess what we did? You hire a cloud employee. If they don't hit your pipeline numbers, you fire their asses. Great. And that, to me, is a really close version of outcome-based pricing. But it'll be interesting, Kane, to see how this evolves on. Again, most people started just passing token amounts. You know, I use 500 tokens. We're going to charge you, 80% margin on that. And we'll basically, that'll be the way you price it. But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Your guess is as good as mine, but we'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
see where it goes.
definitely. I've always been a bit dubious about outcome-based pricing because who's measuring the outcome? If you're measuring it, you're going to sting me, and then we're debating over what an outcome is, which is a nightmare. But no, that makes sense. I really, really appreciate that. I really appreciate your time. I really love the chance to dig into it and stuff like that. I'm assuming it's getsignals.ai. Yeah, that's where people.
That's go. Right. Yeah, that's right.
Getsignals.ai, and go and check it out if you are at all interested. Gabe Larsen on LinkedIn. I'll put your details below as well in the show notes. And thanks so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Kane. Talk soon.
Nice one. Speak soon. Bye now. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you again on the next one. Thanks now. Bye.